to make sense of what I'm talking about. So my talk today is about making a framework for making investment decisions around logistics. My name's Simon Dixon. I'm the Managing Director of Hatmill, which is a logistics and supply chain consultancy. We help businesses, retailers, distributors move warehouses, develop new warehouses, reconfigure how their existing operations work, improve the performance of their warehouses, the general sort of things that you might look at outside for some additional support to do. Recent projects, we've just built 500,000 square feet for Pound World over in Wakefield, and we've got 3 or 4 other projects on at the moment which consumes about another 500,000 square feet for a range of clients at the moment. Keep going. So, what I'm going to talk to you about this morning is really just about how to have a framework for how do you take from being a head of logistics, how do you take a plan for your needs to the rest of the business to get them to sign it off, get it approved, and get it up and running in terms of a solution for your business. And I could do with some slides to help do that.
Can't seem to, doesn't seem to recognise it. There's no setting, is there?
No.
To make it output to screen.
Okay, fine.
So you're going to have to stay cross-legged for a bit longer.
So in terms of what we're going to talk about is what's a typical investment decision in logistics? What are the factors that make logistics investments challenging? So what are the things that you have to deal with in terms of managing your investment decisions? How can we deal with risk, uncertainty and errors in our workings to make sure that we minimise the opportunity of it all going wrong? And we've also got a... what's starting to disappear on me now? You're killing me. And also a suggested framework which would be behind me, which you can see, but I'll talk through that and describe it as best I can. So, what are the type of investment decisions that we run with, or that we have to deal with? It tends to be problem-led. So it's very rare that I meet a client that's thinking, actually, in 5 years' time, I think this is where the business is going, and these are the things I've got to do. It tends to be, we ran out of space last Christmas, rather than we're going to run out of space next Christmas. The challenges we meet are often not cross-functional. They tend to sit within logistics and supply chain. So it tends to be people putting more SKUs in that run out of pick faces, more volume coming through, a shift from maybe store replenishment to e-commerce. The decisions we make tend to be expensive. They tend to require giving a lot of these WTG partners a lot of money to come and install something that will hopefully make your lives a bit easier. The payback, therefore, tends to be over a multiple number of years. And the success of your solution often has a number of dependencies on what the rest of the business is doing. So you can make, it's all great having to do some really good plans in terms of what you think is going to work, but it depends on the trading team keeping to the number of SKUs that they said they were going to run with. It depends on the sales team sticking to the client base that you were expecting them to do. So therefore you've got a significant risk of spending a load of money and ending up with what effectively is a bit of a white elephant in your organisation. So there are a number of factors that sort of feed into the solution that you want to juggle with. First are the overall business requirements. So what's the service level, for example, that you want your customers to experience? Are you trying to shorten the lead time between placement of order and dispatch out into out to the customer? What's the volume changes? How does the volume change within your order mix change? So actually, are you going from maybe fewer larger orders down to lots of really small orders, small numbers of units per order? What's the product changes that go on? So, for example, in clothing, you get into winter, much bigger cube for the same number of items as people start buying coats rather than swimming trunks and bikinis. So you've got to deal with those sort of challenges as well. And that cube challenge is critical if you're thinking of looking at automation. Because what automation will do is make everything much more efficient if you design it in the right way, but it does bring in a certain level of rigidity in terms of what you're putting into place. And as we've seen from all the external influences from presenters so far this morning, the requirement to remain flexible and agile to adapt to those new changes doesn't always necessarily suit an automated solution. The desired benefits, be clear on why are you going ahead with this decision. What is the primary objective of the investment, whether it's a warehouse move, whether it's the installation of automation, whatever. Be clear on that primary objective and share it around amongst the key stakeholders in the organisation. As you build up your business plan or your business case, be clear on how you're basing your costs. Are you basing them on today? Are you including inflation in them? How does it all factor in? Because at some point, whatever you put together in your business case lands on the desk of a finance director who wants to go through that line by line, and you need to have all your answers in terms of how that works. So moving on now to talk about risks and uncertainty in those challenges. Always make sure when you start working out whatever it is you might be going ahead with, build a risk log. Hopefully a lot of you are familiar with those. I don't need to go into much detail, but in terms of looking at what's the likelihood of the risk happening and what's the impact of that risk occurring, and therefore make sure you've got some mitigation plans for dealing with some of those problems as they might occur. The other thing to consider is actually, what is the business plan? Can you get your business to give you a 5 or 10 year business plan for where the volume's going to go? You know, as we've seen from Kevin talking about people wanting you to take 15, 20-year leases. I'd be amazed if anyone here has got a business plan that they're looking at that goes more than about 3 years. Is that fair? Anyone got a business plan for more than 3 years? Anyone got one for 3 years? 1? 5 year? Right, so we've got, out of what, 100 people, I've got 3 who've got a business plan for more than 3 years, and Kevin's telling me you need to make an investment decision for 15. There's a bit of a mismatch there in terms of how we sit there and try and deal with that problem. So you need to understand, actually, even if you have a business plan, what's the opportunity? So if your business starts beating business plan, does your solution still work? If sales drop off a cliff, are you sat there holding a white elephant and people are pointing their finger saying, you've just got to spend 4 million quid on a new warehouse and we're only using 30% of it? What were you thinking? So it's understanding how those that level of uncertainty can change. As part of doing any business plan investment decision, you're probably going to build an Excel model. Yeah. Whilst Excel is great and we'll know and love it, it builds in an element of risk as well. You know, there's always a chance that you'll have some errors in that model. There's a chance that your forecasting accuracy will be out. You know, so in terms of at the start of this year, how accurate is your business at guessing what the volume is going to be when you get into Christmas peak? Build that into your workings in terms of actually how accurate are the numbers that I'm dealing with, and what will happen if we don't hit them over or under. Also in Excel, what's the risk of you making an error, getting a formula wrong and having a massive impact? So make sure you test your Excel models. Get someone else who's not involved in the project to come and have a look at it. Change a number of the inputs, see if the outputs change in line with what you were expecting them to do. Don't get caught in the horrible place where you sat in a board meeting presenting your numbers and someone says, that doesn't quite add up actually. Can you just go and look at that number? Because at that point, you've lost it. And it's a horrible place to be, trust me. Not that I've ever been there, obviously. Third thing on errors is specification. So whatever it is you're going out to buy, spend plenty of time doing your research, talking to a number of different providers and making sure that everything that you need has been talked about. Never make an assumption of, well, I thought it would just do that. Number of investments I see where people are buying things that are not getting down to the level of detail before they put pen to paper is scary. And quite often it then means the implementation path is much longer and much more fraught and ends up requiring even more money and eating up any contingency that you might have built in. So, at this point, I'd draw you a picture of an investment framework and walk you through all the different stages. As we're getting sort of up to the time where you're probably wanting to stand around, basically, I'll describe it in some very high-level stages. So, stage 1, be really clear on the objective of your investment. So what exactly is it that you're trying to achieve? Stage 2, build up the options. What are all the different solution options that will allow you to achieve that objective? And don't just rule anything out just because you don't like the look of it. Make sure you investigate each one in sufficient detail. Because at some point later down that decision-making process, when you get in front of people who are having to sign it off, they'll want to know what else have you looked into. Have you looked at, okay, we looked at properties within 10-mile radius. Well, why 10 miles? What is there something more appropriate 20 miles away? All those sorts of things. Be really diligent in terms of that option evaluation. As you then work out your options, you get to a preferred option. You then effectively take that to board or some sort of approval process if your organisation is such that it has those sorts of processes. The important thing to remember at that point is you will be tested. Boards rarely make big investment decisions on one board meeting. So have you accounted for going back a second and a third time with reworked numbers before you get an approval? Or are you sat there going, well, actually, I've talked to the property agent and this property isn't going to be available next month, and you're trying to twist the arm of your board to make a decision that they're not really prepared to make. They don't want to sign off a £15 million investment on the basis of a 10-minute presentation with a few flaky numbers. So you've got to be building that into your timeline in terms of how you're going to get it to go ahead. So be expecting to do 2 or 3 different board presentations where your business case is being tested, you've got to go away and review it, then you've got to adapt it, and then you've got to re-present it with any changes in assumptions, and make sure that everyone buys into it. Deal with any objections. Don't ignore them and think, well, they don't really matter. What does the head of marketing know about logistics? He can still disrupt your plans because he's still vying for the same cash that the business is considering investing. In terms of preparation and pre and post board meeting, get around the individuals who are going to be in the board meeting and making those decisions. Give them plenty of opportunity to have an hour and a half with you to go through the business case, so that any difficult questions are asked on a one-to-one basis, not out in public where you might be on the spot and not necessarily give the answer you would give if you had more time to consider it. 2 things to bear in mind throughout the process. One is obviously cost, the other is the benefits. Whatever your objective is, you're always going to have some costs, you're always going to have some benefits. A client FD of mine said to me about 10 years ago, and it stuck in my mind, costs are certain, benefits aren't. And it's always good to have that bearing in mind in terms of, he's absolutely right. You start spending cash, that money's gone. Whether you're actually going to get the efficiency improvements that you're hoping for, and it usually is a hope, be really clear and be really diligent in terms of how you're going to unlock those. In terms of benefits, as you start out on the process, you've got some implied benefits and things that salesmen might have told you about this facility, this conveyor is going to give you this or whatever. As you then start to refine your business case and nail it down more, they become confirmed. And then they become your new business plan targets. So be thinking about, while you get excited about how a piece of automation can improve your efficiency 3 times over, that's great. But in 3 years' time, that's going to be your budget that you're going to be measured on and bonused on. And are you still going to be that happy that you can still deliver that benefit that you signed up to 2 years previously? The final bit, once you actually get approval, is there tends to be conditions. There tends to be expectations from the business of how you're going to do it. So be clear on those and always constantly go back to and feed back into your board meeting in terms of the progress of your project. Don't try and hide anything. If there's any problems that are coming up, take it back and get people to buy into any changes in the programme. And then the last bit is really robust project management to deliver it. And anyone who's been here on previous years, you've probably heard me harp on for long enough about robust project management. So, in summary of last 15, 20 minutes, 1, have a clear, unambiguous objective of whatever it is that you're going to make your investment on. 2, have a high-level plan before wasting time on developing a project that has limited chance of going ahead. So do some high-level numbers, see if it stacks up. Don't waste your time. You could be spending your time on better things. Tackle risks, uncertainty and errors with your eyes open. So be really clear on what all those are and what you're going to do about them. Be clear on the approval process that you're going to need to go through to get people to buy in. Business cases always develop over time. Everyone would like to hold you down to a fixed thing that you said this 2 years ago. They always evolve. Prepare your stakeholders for that and get them to get that mentality of things change as you get into implementation. And then finally, have a robust plan for implementation and benefits realisation.